Welcome to the conversation on the TYT network. Well, we're about to have a conversation with Julie Oliver. Who is she? She's a Democratic candidate in Texas' 25th district. She's a progressive that has both Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden's endorsements. Huh, interesting. So Julie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
No problem. All right. So Julie, there's a lot to discuss here. First of all, this is your second time running, right?
It is. I ran in 2018 and came back to finish the job.
Ooh, I like that. There's a lot I like about your strength. So this was supposed to be a pretty solidly Republican district. Apparently not so. So you got pretty close last time, and this time looks like there are polls that have it at a statistical tie. So tell us what's different this time around.
Well, I'll say, this was intentionally gerrymandered. Whether or not it's a red district remains to be seen. I think it was actually a non-voting district. I think so many people felt left out of the process, certainly didn't feel represented by Congressman Williams, so gave up voting. And I'll say one of the biggest differences between 2018 and 2020 is we have been so intentional about getting folks registered to vote who've moved into our district, but they're voters. So a lot of times if somebody moves from another state, let's say Colorado, that actually has same day voter registration, you can walk up to the polls and get registered to vote the day you want to vote. You can't do that in Texas. And if you're not aware of that before you head to the polls, you will be a disenfranchised voter and you will miss the election. In fact, Texas shuts down voter registration 30 days in front of an election. So we have been doing voter registration by mail at scale for about a year and a half now. And I think we've sent out 30,000 voter registration forms to people in our district.
I like the sound of that too. Okay, so you have a different thesis on how to win, which of course I share, and I'm here for it, which is that in a red to purple district, you don't have to be a corporate Democrat. You could just run as an unabashed progressive. Now, most of Washington doesn't agree, so if you win, that would make a giant difference. But tell me why you came to that conclusion, why you did not listen to traditional way of thinking about democratic politics.
I think because I wasn't a traditional politician or even candidate. I had no political experience prior to running in 2018. The closest I came to getting involved in politics aside from voting was doing one phone bank for Obama's his first run, and I got so scared I never went back. So I realized that in running, money in politics is such a corrosive part of this game, and it's a rigged game. It's rigged in favor of the corporate donors. And so I was intentional in saying, you know what, we're not gonna have that influence. And in fact, we're actually not gonna have the influence of any PAC money. I don't think I knew what that meant when I first ran, but we haven't taken any PAC money since I first decided to run in 2017. And campaign finance is incredibly important to me. We need more regular people being able to run for office. That is very challenging when you don't have a roster of donors. So creating a funding stream for publicly financed campaigns is incredibly important to me. And I'd like to tax corporate PACs 90% to create that funding stream.
I told you I liked her strength. All right, so Julie, you're not taking corporate PAC money, but are you saying you're not taking any PAC money, Union PAC,
Nope.
Progressive PAC, nothing?
No.
Okay.
I don't take any PAC money. I've had, much to the chagrin of my campaign manager, I've sent back PAC checks. but I will tell you, it's made a difference. One of the biggest constituencies that this makes a difference to is young people. Most young people feel jaded. They're like, well, all politicians are bought and sold by someone, and so it's really empowering to tell them, no, truly, our average donation is, I think, $43. We have tens of thousands of donors that are behind this movement. And when your average contribution is $43, it's going to be really hard to get arm twisted into legislation that you don't favor and is against your values. So they find that incredibly inspiring. And when I tell them about taxing corporate PACs and creating this revenue stream for publicly financed campaigns, and I ask them, I'm like, I want you to run for office, they get really excited by this. And that's a good thing.
So the website, by the way, if you want to be one of those $43 donors, so you can't control Julie, julieoliver.org is the website, julieoliver.org. And if you're watching later on YouTube or Facebook, we will have these links in the description box. So it's so easy to click on it, and you could check out the website and then contribute if you agree. So, and I call that the Hearthstone Rule, by the way, Julie. Allison Hearthstone ran against Dianne Feinstein as a Just Democrat in 2018, and she said no PAC money at all, because she was a teacher, and she said, if I'm gonna vote with a teachers union, I don't want you to think that I voted that way because I took their money. I want you to know I voted that way because I meant it. And so I actually think that's the much better way to go. And the fact that you've been able to raise a good amount of money to scare the Republican in the race, and maybe he's not scared enough, is an amazing sign, a wonderful sign. So, I guess one of the questions I have is, how'd you get Biden's endorsement? Because you're unabashedly progressive, Medicare for all, Green New Deal, et cetera, some of the things he has not signed on to. So I understand why you got Bernie's endorsement. I understand how you got Elizabeth Warren's endorsement, but how'd you get Biden?
I don't know. I gotta be honest, I don't know. I don't know, it just happened. I will say that, I know all eyes are kind of on Texas right now, and there's a focus on flipping our state. So I think, and I will say, we also caught the attention of the National Party. The DCCC put us on their red to blue list. We're also on the PCCC's red to bold list, but we are unabashedly progressive. And I don't know if that had something to do with it, being on the red to blue list, incentivized, Biden to endorse us. I am happy that we have that endorsement. It also, I also understand how, that with that comes an incredible responsibility to stand for progressives and when elected, being able to be part of that coalition that goes to Biden and said, no, this is a perfect opportunity right now in the midst of this pandemic, because we'll be dealing with this in 2021. This is the perfect time to guarantee universal health care. The Affordable Care Act is going to be overturned by the Supreme Court. Trump now has a 6-3 majority, and the Affordable Care Act will be overturned. This is a perfect opportunity to implement Medicare for all. It's also an opportunity to really say we want to be part of the technology and the economy of the future, and that is a renewable green energy economy, and all that can start here in Texas. So proud to have the future president's endorsement, but also know that comes with the responsibility of using my platform to get him to move closer to the progressive side of the spectrum.
So Julie, how has your stances been received in Texas? Especially because this district used to be plus 15. In fact, it was plus 15 for Trump. So it's not used to be, that's 2016. But you're running on Green New Deal and Medicare for all. So how's it been received?
Well, everybody has this notion that Texas is, especially, parts of these, rural parts of Texas are really against these progressive policies, but these progressive policies make sense. It makes sense to have Medicare for all. It actually will shore up. We want to solve the rural healthcare crisis or hospital crisis. All of the rural hospitals in Texas that are shutting down. Medicare for all solves that. We want to invest in our future. We know that the fossil fuel industry has always been an incredibly volatile industry here in Texas. And in fact, we've lost 50,000 jobs in the fossil fuel industry just from the price of oil going negative over these past few months. And farmers and ranchers have been living with climate change for such a long time. They know it's real. You don't have to talk a farmer or rancher into Green New Deal. They understand that is very, very real. So talking about our policies and being available to people in this district is what is changing this district. And I'm proud to be part of that with thousands of other people who are doing this alongside with me.
Have I mentioned julieoliver.org? Okay, so Roger Williams is the guy you're running against. Look, I feel like if the voters in your district, or really almost any district, knew the actual difference between your healthcare proposal and Williams' healthcare proposal, you would landslide him. It doesn't matter what kind of a Republican district is, because he's voted to take away the Affordable Care Act, 4 dozen times, 5 dozen times?
Yeah,
and
he's had votes against healthcare 63 times during his 4 terms.
5 dozen, wow, 63, okay. So, and when you take away the Affordable Care Act, you do take away protections for pre-existing conditions, but you also take away protections for a whole heap of stuff. And so that would mean there was another 20 to 30 million people who are now uninsured again the minute that act is done, and we're in the middle of a pandemic. Do you think that whereas you would cover everyone in a pandemic, and we know that universal health care in every other country that does it is less expensive, not more expensive than the current system. So given that, I'm curious about the media coverage, because I feel like if the media actually told people that, they'd be like, this is a no-brainer. We're gonna vote for Julie, right? Who doesn't want to have health insurance for free and have it cost less overall for all of society? Has the press been honest about that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that's been part of the problem. The press has been giving oxygen to a president who consistently tells us the sky is falling, or whatever the tweet of the day is that they give oxygen to. You don't have to cover everything that comes out of that man's either thumb tips or mouth. And that's what the media does. But the reality, we could actually have real conversations about facts. You mentioned one. Our healthcare system is the most expensive in the world, and it leaves out the most people in the world. We have in Texas, we have a maternal mortality rate that rivals third world countries. So if we really want to improve outcomes and save lives and save money, guaranteed universal healthcare, single payer through Medicare for all is the way to get there.
That's a great way of framing it that I have not heard before. We have the most expensive system in the world and the one that leaves out the most people. How could you possibly be in favor of that? And the way that you would be in favor of that is if the media lies to you and tells you, he said, she said, I can't tell the difference. No, yeah. Williams' plan would cover, well, he doesn't have a plan, but if he had a plan, it would cover 30, 40 million less people and would cost more. So if they were honest about it, he'd get killed. But they basically lie on behalf of Republicans by calling things even when they're not remotely even. So have I mentioned julieoliver.org? I think I did. Okay, so Julie, you're a regular person. You don't come across as a politician at all. I can sense it instantly. So what are you doing here? How did you get involved in politics?
Honest to God, I have a son who's 23, but he has just battled having health. He was born in neonatal intensive care when as a newborn. He has a heart condition that we discovered when he was 5. Went on to discover he has an immune deficiency that kept him out of high school for 2 years. So when Congressman Williams and other Republicans voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act, in 2017, I looked at my husband, I said, oh my gosh, I have a terrible idea. I need you to talk me out of it. I think I'm gonna run for Congress. And he didn't talk me out of it. And again, I had no political experience. I joke around, my very first block walk, you're supposed to use software to go block walking and target doors that will be Democratic voters in a primary. I literally went door to door on my first block walk because I didn't know you were supposed to do that and talk to people. And it was really cold, it was December. But yeah, I'm not this polished, groomed candidate. I'm a mom who cares so deeply for her son, but also cares so deeply for my community, and realizes that the social safety net is what saved me as a teen. I was a 17-year-old high school dropout runaway who got pregnant, and the social safety net saved my life. I ended up going back to high school. I was a Medicaid mom, gave birth to my daughter, went on to college. There was no college plan in our family, and then was eventually able to go into law school as well. My community made an investment in me. The people who were paying their taxes in the early 90s, the reason why I'm here today. And so I see the social safety net as making investments in people, and that's where our investments should be made. Not in corporations' bottom lines, and in real people, in their lives, in their livelihoods. And that's what I want to bring in my little tiny piece of congressional representation. That's what I'd like to bring to Congress.
Yeah, you're a good point machine. I have not heard other people frame it as social safety net equals investment in people, and you know the Republicans of course frame it as why are we giving to these lazy people, these people who didn't work for it, who don't deserve it, et cetera. And they have this myth of meritocracy. So if Kushner and Trump were handed a couple $100 million from their parents, that's because they deserved it and they earned it. And if you had to go on Medicaid or welfare, that's because you weren't a good person. Well, I can't wait for you to prove them wrong. JulieOliver.org. I think I mentioned it. Okay. Okay. So Julie, as you can tell, we don't hide our perspective here. The audience knows we root for progressives. You're running as a super strong progressive in a purple to red district, and I love it. But now let me ask you tough questions as a person in the media. So if you win, your Democratic colleagues will tell you to do none of the things that are on your agenda. And they will tell you, no, Julie, look, you're new to this, you don't understand, it's gonna hurt your Democratic colleagues. And I just introduced you and you just guys had lunch and you got along so well. Now, you're not gonna betray them, are you, by insisting on voting for Medicare for all when Pelosi and others don't wanna vote on that? If you make them vote on it, they're gonna be in a tough spot in their own district. You're not gonna hurt your friends and colleagues that way, are you? They will say, and what will you say back?
We'll say, I will actually pull out my whiteboard and show them how Medicare for all is the thing that, again, saves lives, improves outcomes, and saves money. And at the end of the day, who is it that we want to be fighting for? Is it that we want to be fighting for our communities, or do we want to be fighting for that health insurance executive's compensation plan? A health insurance executive who makes anywhere from last year $49,000 a day to over $100,000 a day, every day, 365 days a year. Put that in perspective. We don't pay teachers $49,000 a year, yet we're paying health insurance executives $49,000 every day. And that's a low end of the spectrum. That's not who I want to fight for. And that's, again, why I made a very intentional decision not to take PAC money, because I don't want to be arm twisted by those colleagues who say, you can't vote that way, Julie. That's not how my donors want you to vote. I don't care what your donors think. What I care about is what my voters need. And in my district, Medicare for all works.
So, first of all, $49,000 a day, by the way, to not give you health care, because they make a profit by not giving you health care. They lose money every time they give you health care. So that those folks whose salaries you gave, they have perfected the art of not providing health care. And so we have a totally sick system. But Julie, they're not gonna say, hey, it's my donors. And if you say that, what they'll say is, we're deeply offended. Do you really think that's who we are? Are you saying we're corrupt, Julie? Because that's super offensive to leadership and to all these wonderful people that you just met. Julie, you don't wanna be that offensive, do you?
Of course I don't wanna be offensive and rude. However, campaign finance reports don't lie. They don't. You know what?
You gotta win, Julie. You gotta win.
I actually want. You remember how the Republicans paraded out those posters during the impeachment hearings, and they were just so tacky. Like, I want somebody to do that but on campaign finance reports. Like, every time a congressperson is speaking, have a list of the corporate donors that are funding that re-election bid. That's what I want to see.
JulieOliver.org. Have I mentioned it? Have I mentioned JulieOliver.org? Okay, so look, it would be a great day in America if we had enough momentum within the progressives in Congress that they could actually stand up to leadership and say, okay, that's like your opinion, man, but my voters matter more than your donors. And so, Julie, if there is, let me ask one more question about that. If there is a Democratic majority in the House, the Senate, and the presidency, do you think you'll be negotiating with Republicans who at that point will have zero power, or with the donor class that fund the rest of the Democratic Party?
I think that's a yes and yeah. I think it's going to be, I think both, honestly. I think it's, depends on the issue. I think there are probably some things that are bipartisan in nature that need resolution. And I think about the things that affect my district. I have a large military installation that has a large proportion of veterans. And we are not honoring our commitments to veterans. We are not meeting disability claims in a timely fashion. I found out today that veterans, retired veterans now have to pay a fee to a TRICARE supplement. And if they don't do it by the end of this year, and there's only one phone line to call, by the way, you can't register through the website, they will lose their coverage. And so I think things like that we have to reach across the aisle to develop solutions for. But I do think that you're right. I think the more we can grow our progressive ranks, the bigger the voice we are going to have in Congress. And we are going to be able to be a strong contingent. I'm really excited that Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman are going to Congress because they're adding to those progressive ranks. And do I think it's going to be easy? No, but I'll tell you one other thing. My view of this is I have 2 years. I'm not looking at this as a 4-year proposition or a 6-year or a 20-year proposition. I've got 2 years because everything gets redrawn for the next congressional cycle anyway. In 2022, all the district lines in Texas will look very, very different. I've got 2 years. Yeah. That's it. What is the most amount of good that I can do in those 2 years?
Have I mentioned JulieOliver.org? Okay, guys, you got to understand something. What Julie just said is also super important because a lot of people go to make a career out of this. If you're thinking about it I got 2 years and I got the fierce urgency of now to get this done, that's exactly the right attitude. So I love that you're on redtobold.com, and that's a great program that has these wonderful progressives running in purple districts. But obviously, Julie's in a super tight race and you could help put her over the top, and she doesn't have anyone but you. There are no PACs, just Julie Oliver and you guys. So I think the website was JulieOliver.org. So, Julie, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Like what you see? Click the subscribe button below and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another video from the Young Turks.